Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are orienting ourselves towards, well, the absolute edge. We are looking at a rectangle of land that sits on the extreme southwest corner of Europe, just staring out into the Atlantic.
We are talking about Portugal.
We are. And before we even start, I kind of want to scrap the usual mental image, forget the custard tarts for a second, though I promise we will get to them, and maybe forget the sunny golf courses.
I think we need to start with the map, seriously, because if you look at the Iberian Peninsula, Portugal it's a geopolitical anomaly.
It really is.
You have this massive bulk of Spain, which dominates, what, 5/6 of the peninsula?
Yeah.
And then you have this sliver, just about 1/6, clinging to the west coast.
And by all conventional logic of, medieval conquest and consolidation, this country probably shouldn't exist.
It shouldn't. And that's the first thing that really jumped out at me from the research. In a continent where borders were fluid for centuries, I mean, think of Germany or Italy or Poland. Portugal's borders have remained virtually unchanged since the mid-13th century.
That's nearly 800 years. 800 years of holding the line against a much, much larger neighbor.
It's the oldest nation-state in Europe with defined borders. And to understand why, you have to look at a couple of key dates. First, 1143, the Treaty of Zamora, which is the official birth certificate. But then, crucially, 1386.
The Treaty of Windsor.
The Anglo-Portuguese alliance.
The oldest active diplomatic alliance in the world, still going.
Exactly, and that is the strategic key right there. Portugal realized very early on that to survive against Castile, which would, of course, become Spain, they needed a powerful friend. A friend at sea.
And that relationship with England and later the UK, it just completely shaped their economy, their wars.
Even their wine industry. It touches everything.
So the mission for this deep dive is to move beyond that vacation destination vibe. We really want to try and understand the operating system of this country. How did a nation with a relatively small population at the time of the discoveries, maybe 1 million people?
1 million, maybe 1.5 million. Tiny.
How did they manage to project power globally? How did they engineer an empire that stretched from Brazil all the way to Macau?
And we have to start with the geography because it dictates the destiny. It really does. You have a country that's defined by 2 massive rivers rising in Spain and flowing west. The Tagus, or the Tajo, and the Douro.
And these aren't just water sources. They feel like cultural dividers.
They absolutely are. The north is granite, it's mountainous, you feel the Celtic roots, it's traditionally more conservative. Then you go south of the Tagus, and it's limestone, it's rolling plains, it's Mediterranean, and historically deeply Moorish.
And the whole country's orientation is west.
Always west. It has to be. With Spain blocking the land route to the rest of Europe, the Atlantic was the only option. It wasn't a barrier for them, it was the highway. That 830 kilometers of coastline turned the Portuguese into a maritime people purely by necessity.
So let's zoom in on where that Atlantic highway really begins. Let's talk about Lisbon.
Lisbon is the perfect place to start, not just because it's the capital, but because the city you see today is, well, it's a lie.
A lie.
Or, maybe more accurately, it's a very specific philosophical statement that's been built on top of a catastrophe.
You talk about 1755.
On November 1st, 1755, All Saints' Day. This is a pivotal moment, not just for Portugal, but for the entire European Enlightenment. At around 9:40 in the morning, a massive earthquake, now estimated at magnitude 8.5 to 9.0, strikes out in the Atlantic.
And because it was a major religious holiday, All Saints' Day, everyone was in church.
Correct. The great cathedrals of the city were packed, and they were lit with thousands of candles for the services. So when the tremors hit, the roofs collapsed on the congregations.
And then the candles ignited all the debris.
Exactly. You get a firestorm that just burns for days. And if that wasn't enough, about 40 minutes after the initial quake, a tsunami, maybe several, engulfs the entire lower city near the river.
It's this unbelievable tripartite disaster. Quake, fire, and flood. But the deep dive here isn't just the destruction, it's the reconstruction. The research really highlighted one specific figure, the Marquês de Pombal.
Sebastião José de Carvalho e Melo, the Marquês de Pombal. He was the king's right-hand man, and he was a ruthless pragmatist, a true Enlightenment figure. While the king was panicking, considering abandoning the city entirely, Pombal famously said, "Bury the dead and heal the living."
A very practical man.
Immensely. And he used the disaster as a sort of a blank slate to completely restructure not just the city, but Portuguese society itself.
He didn't just rebuild the medieval city that was there before, did he?
No, not at all. That's the key. If you walk through the Baixa district today, that's the downtown area near the river, you are walking through an 18th century rationalist grid.
It's all straight lines.
Broad avenues, standardized building heights, perfect symmetry. This was the Enlightenment rendered in stone. He swept away the chaotic, dark, medieval alleys that represented the old, feudal, church-dominated order and replaced them with a grid that represented reason, commerce, and secular power.
And the engineering was revolutionary for the time. The sources kept mentioning something called the Gaiola Pombalina.
The Pombaline cage. This is fascinating stuff.
Uh-huh.
Pombal brought in engineers and architects and said, we need buildings that can survive the next one. So inside the masonry walls of these new standardized buildings, they built a flexible wooden framework, a cage inspired by ship construction.
So the idea was that the structure could bend.
Exactly. The stone might fall away during a tremor, but the wooden cage would flex and sway, keeping the floors from pancaking and giving people time to escape. It's one of the earliest examples of anti-seismic engineering in the world.
They actually tested it, didn't they? By marching troops around models to simulate vibration.
They did. It was pure science applied to urban planning. This wasn't about faith or tradition, it was about data and experimentation. But there's another layer to Lisbon's story, because not everything fell.
Alfama.
Right, the Alfama district. It sits on a hard bedrock hill overlooking the river, so it survived relatively intact. And that gives you this incredible contrast in the city today.
So you can walk from one world to another?
In minutes. You go from the rational, wide boulevards of the Baixa, and then you turn a corner and you're in the Alfama, which is essentially a kasbah. It's a medieval maze.
This is the Moorish footprint, isn't it?
Absolutely. The street layout is defensive, it's narrow, it's winding, it's designed to confuse invaders and to provide shade from the sun. This is the historic soul of the city. It's where Fado was born.
Okay, let's unpack Fado for a second, because it's often sold to tourists as just folk music, but the sources suggest it's much more sociological.
Fado is the sonic representation of the Portuguese psyche. It truly is. In Lisbon, traditional fado was the music of the marginalized, the sailors, the dock workers, the prostitutes in Alfama and Moraria. It's characterized by a sense of fatalism.
Right, the name itself.
The concept of destiny, which is what fado means from the Latin fadum. It's not just, I'm sad, it's, I am resigning myself to a fate that I cannot control. It's a profound and beautiful melancholy.
Which makes perfect sense in a port city that's constantly watching its ships leave, never knowing for sure if they'll return.
Precisely. And geographically, Lisbon connects these eras so perfectly. You have the medieval Alfama, the Enlightenment Baixa, and then you have the modern expansion, like the Parque das Nações.
The site of the 1998 Expo.
Yes, which transformed a derelict industrial wasteland into this futuristic, high-tech district. It's home to the Oceanário de Lisboa, one of the largest and best aquariums in the world.
And even that has a deeper meaning, doesn't it?
It does. The Oceanário isn't just a big fish tank. Its central tank is designed to represent the global ocean, connecting the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, and Antarctic ecosystems. It's a very modern callback to that classic Portuguese idea that the sea is one single entity that connects all of humanity.
Speaking of connecting humanity, or conquering it, depending on your perspective,
Mm-hmm.
we really need to move downriver. We're going to Belém. This place feels like the launch pad.
Belém is where the deep dive gets technical about navigation. We often have this romantic view of the explorers, just hopping on a boat and hoping for the best. That is absolutely not what happened here.
This was the Silicon Valley of the 15th century.
In a way, yes. Under Prince Henry the Navigator, who, by the way, was less of a sailor and more of a venture capitalist and logistics manager, the Portuguese developed a systematic, scientific approach to the Atlantic.
They had to solve a physics problem, really. How do you navigate when you can't see land?
In the Mediterranean, you can coast hop from island to island. You're never really lost. In the Atlantic, you are in the void.
So what was the breakthrough?
Celestial navigation. Using the astrolabe and the quadrant to measure the angle of the sun or the North Star, they created complex tables of solar declination. But the real genius was figuring out the winds and currents. They created the Volta do Mar.
The turn of the sea.
Right. They realized that to get home from the coast of Africa, you couldn't just sail back against the wind and current. You had to sail away from Africa, way out into the open Atlantic, almost towards America, to catch the westerly winds that would then loop you back home to Portugal.
That requires an incredible amount of courage and, I guess, mathematical trust.
Immense trust in the data. And the wealth generated by this knowledge, this system, it didn't just disappear. It's frozen in stone in Belém. And that's where we have to talk about the Manueline style.
This is the architectural signature of the Age of Discovery.
Named after King Manuel I, who reigned at the absolute peak of this era. If you look at the Mosteiro dos Jerónimos, the Jerónimos Monastery, you aren't just seeing a church. You are seeing the spice trade revenue made manifest.
The level of detail is just staggering.
The sheer cost of that detailing, the carved maritime ropes, the armillary spheres, the coral motifs, the cross of the Order of Christ, was funded by a 5% tax on spices coming from the east. It was called the Vintena da Pimenta, the pepper 20th.
It's incredibly exuberant. It's almost bragging.
It is bragging. It's political propaganda in limestone. It's a message to Spain, to the Vatican, to France, saying, we own the oceans, we have the technology and the divine favor.
And you mentioned the armillary sphere. That's a key symbol.
It's everywhere. It was a navigational tool, a model of the celestial sphere. It became the personal emblem of King Manuel, and it's literally on the Portuguese flag today. It represents this mastery of global navigation.
And sitting right there in the river is the Torre de Belém, the Belém Tower.
The ceremonial gateway to the city. It's a fortress, yes, a beautiful one, but it's so much more. Look at the details. The loggia is very Venetian. There are Moorish watchtowers, and then there's the rhino.
The rhino.
You have to look closely. On one of the western turrets, there is a gargoyle of a rhinoceros. It depicts a real rhino that was brought from India to Lisbon in 1515 as a gift for the king.
No way.
It was the first rhino seen in Europe since Roman times. Dürer made his famous woodcut of it. That little stone carving is proof of the incredible global logistical network they had built by the early 1500s.
And nearby, but much more modern, is the Monument to the Discoveries.
Built in 1960, very different feel. It was commissioned during the Estado Novo regime under Salazar. It's austere, it's imposing, shaped like the prow of a caravel.
And who was on it?
It celebrates the 500th anniversary of Henry the Navigator's death. So it presents this very unified, almost monolithic view of history. Henry stands at the prow, and behind him are all the explorers, cartographers, missionaries, and the poet Camões.
It's a powerful image.
It's a very powerful image, but we have to remember the context. It was built by an authoritarian dictatorship to reinforce nationalistic pride at a time when Portugal was fighting to hold on to its African colonies.
Before we leave Belém, the outline mentions the Pastéis de Belém. But let's look at the why. Why does a monastery invent a world-famous custard tart?
The answer is laundry.
Laundry.
It's all about egg whites. For centuries, convents and monasteries used egg whites to starch their religious habits. The clothes. It made them stiff and white.
Okay, so that left them with a problem.
A massive problem.
But
Thousands and thousands of leftover egg yolks. So the nuns and monks in Portugal became masters of yolk-based desserts. The pastel de nata is a delicious byproduct of starched collars.
So how did he get out of the monastery?
The liberal revolution of 1820 started shutting down the religious orders. To survive, the monks at Jerónimos started selling their secret recipe tarts to a nearby sugar refinery. That recipe was eventually sold, and that refinery became the Antiga Confeitaria de Belém, which still sells them today.
That is the kind of supply chain detail I absolutely love. Okay, let's shift gears. We're leaving the river and heading up into the hills. Sintra.
If Lisbon is the city of Enlightenment reason, Sintra is the undisputed capital of Romanticism.
Or Byron called it a glorious Eden.
He did, and it fits. Sintra is a microclimate. It's just north of Lisbon up in these wooded hills, and it's often shrouded in this eerie sea mist. It's cooler, it's greener, much more lush. For centuries, it was where the court and the nobility fled to escape the summer heat of Lisbon.
But it really became something else in the 19th century.
That's when it became an architectural playground, specifically under King Ferdinand II. He was a German prince who married the Queen of Portugal.
And we have to talk about his creation, the Pina Palace. It looks like a Disney castle on hallucinogens.
That is a very accurate description. It's the ultimate expression of 19th century Romanticism. Romanticism as a movement was all about emotion over reason, embracing nature, and being fascinated with the past, especially the medieval and exotic past.
So Ferdinand took that and just ran with it.
He took a ruined monastery on the highest peak and turned it into a complete fantasy. You have bright yellow Gothic towers next to red Moorish minarets, next to walls covered in Portuguese tiles and windows in the Manueline style. It's eclectic on purpose. It's designed to look like an opera set perched on a mountain.
But there's also the older history right in the center of town, the National Palace.
With the two giant white conical chimneys, you can't miss them. That palace is medieval, and it's arguably more historically significant, is where you find the Sala das Pegas.
The Room of the Magpies. I love this story.
It's great. The story goes that King Chihuahua was caught by his queen, Philippa of Lancaster, kissing one of her ladies-in-waiting. To put a stop to the court gossip, the chattering women, he commissioned a ceiling to be painted with 136 magpies, one for every woman at court.
It's a sort of passive-aggressive message.
A very royal clapback. Each magpie holds a banner in its beak that says, pour bem, which can mean for good or no harm meant. It was his way of saying, it was innocent, now stop talking about it.
Moving north from the Lisbon area, we get into the heartland of the early kingdom, Extremadura and the Beras. We have to stop at Óbidos.
Óbidos is just this perfectly preserved medieval walled town. You can still walk the battlements. But culturally, it's interesting because for centuries it was known as the Vila das Rainhas, the town of the queens.
How so?
It became traditional for the king to give the town to his queen as a wedding present. It was her personal property. She collected the taxes. She managed the administration. It created this little pocket of female political and economic power within the kingdom.
And then in this region, we hit the really heavy religious architecture, Alcobaça and Batalla.
These aren't just churches. They are powerful political statements of independence. Batalla, which means battle, the monastery of the battle, was built to commemorate the Battle of Aljubarrota in 1385.
A hugely important battle.
The defining battle. This was where a small Portuguese force, with the help of English longbowmen, defeated a massive Castilian army that had invaded to claim the throne. Batalla is the architectural guarantee that Portugal would not become a province of Spain. Its Gothic style is just breathtaking, especially the unfinished chapels.
And Alcobaça holds the tragic history.
Yes. Alcobaça is Portugal's largest church, a Cistercian masterpiece of simplicity and scale, and it houses the tombs of Pedro and Inés. This is the Romeo and Juliet of Portugal, but maybe even more dramatic.
Give us the short version.
Prince Pedro fell deeply in love with Inés de Castro, his wife's lady-in-waiting, a Galician noblewoman. The court and his father, the king, hated it for political reasons. After Pedro's wife died, his father had Inés murdered.
And Pedro didn't take it well.
When Pedro became king, he hunted down the assassins and, according to the chronicles, ripped their hearts out with his bare hands. That's the legend. And then he had Inés's body exhumed, placed on a throne, and forced the entire court to kiss her decomposing hand. And he commissioned these two magnificent tombs, placing them foot to foot in the church.
Why foot to foot?
So that on Judgment Day, when the dead rise, the very first thing that Pedro and Inés will see is each other. It's that deep Portuguese fatalism again. Love, death, and eternity all intertwined.
Wow. Okay, further north still, we hit Coimbra, the brain of the nation.
Coimbra is to Portugal what Oxford or Cambridge is to England, but perhaps even more central to the national identity for a long time. The university was founded in 1290, making it one of the oldest in the world. It physically dominates the city, sitting on the highest hill.
And the student traditions there are visually familiar to a lot of people.
Very. If you visit Coimbra during the academic year, you will see students walking around in a black suit and a heavy black cape. This is the Traje Academico. It's a tradition that goes back centuries, meant to erase social differences between students.
And this is where the Harry Potter connection comes in.
It is. J.K. Rowling lived and taught English in Porto for a few years in the early 90s. And many speculate this very distinct academic aesthetic influenced the Hogwarts uniforms and the whole vibe of the wizarding school.
But beyond pop culture, Coimbra represents the centralization of knowledge in Portugal. For a long time, it was the only university. This created a very tight-knit political and intellectual elite class who all knew each other from their university days. And inside the university, there's a library that sounds terrifyingly ornate.
The Biblioteca Joanina. It is a high Baroque masterpiece. We're talking gold leaf everywhere, exotic woods from Brazil, intricate ceiling frescoes. It's designed to overwhelm you with the wealth and power of knowledge under the Portuguese crown.
But my favorite detail from the research is the pest control.
It's the best part.
Pest control.
Inside this priceless library, there is a colony of bats. They've been there for centuries. They live behind the ornate bookshelves during the day. At night, the librarians leave, the bats come out, and they eat the insects that would otherwise destroy the ancient manuscripts.
So they're a natural, organic pest control system.
The most beautiful one you can imagine. Every morning before the library opens, the librarians have to cover the massive wooden tables with leather cloths to catch the bat guano from the night's work.
Bats preserving knowledge. I absolutely love it. Okay, let's cross the Douro River. We are entering the north. We are in Porto.
And the atmosphere changes immediately. There's a famous saying in Portugal, Braga prays, Coimbra studies, Lisbon shows off, and Porto works.
It definitely feels grittier, more industrial.
It's the granite. The geology of the country shifts here. Lisbon is built on bright, sunny limestone hills. Porto is built from dark gray, somber granite. It's an industrial city, a merchant city. It has this steep, chaotic topography that just tumbles down to the river.
And that river is dominated by the bridges.
The Ponte Luis is the icon. It's a massive, double-deck metal arch bridge. And it looks like the Eiffel Tower was turned sideways and stuck across a gorge, which makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Because it was designed by a disciple of Gustave Eiffel, a man named Teofilo Serrig. It represents the industrial Iron Age crashing into this ancient medieval city. It connects Porto to Vila Nova de Gaia on the other side.
Now, we have to talk about the product that put this city on the global map, port wine. But let's go deeper than just, it's a sweet red wine. This is a geopolitical product.
100%. Port wine is the child of the Anglo-Portuguese alliance and constant war with France.
How does that work?
In the 17th and 18th centuries, England was very often at war with France, which meant they were cut off from their beloved French claret from Bordeaux, so they turned to their old ally, Portugal.
But the wine from the Douro Valley was different.
It was a rough, dry red wine, and it would often spoil on the long, hot sea voyage to London or Bristol. So to preserve it, the merchants started adding a small amount of neutral grape spirit brandy, or aguardente, to the barrels.
They hack it to make it last longer.
Exactly. And they discovered that this did two things. One, it stabilized the wine for the journey. Two, the brandy killed the yeast, which stopped the fermentation process, leaving all the natural residual sugar from the grapes in the wine. It also, of course, boosted the alcohol content.
And that is how port wine as we know it was born.
It wasn't a culinary choice at first. It was a preservation technique driven by international trade and warfare.
And this explains why all the port lodges are in Gaia, not Porto.
Right. Porto is on the north bank of the Douro. Vila Nova de Gaia is on the south. The wine is actually made way upriver in the Douro Valley, but for centuries it had to be shipped downriver on these special flat-bottomed boats called rabilos to Gaia for aging.
And why Gaia specifically?
The north-facing hillsides of Gaia are cooler and damper, which provides the perfect, stable climate for aging the wine slowly in barrels. And if you look at the names on the big lodges, Taylor, Graham, Cockburn, Croft, Sandeman, they are English and Scottish names.
The British merchants basically built a colony there.
They did. They established what was called the Factory House in Porto as their exclusive merchants association. The Methuen Treaty of 1703 cemented this trade, giving preferential low duties to Portuguese wines imported into England. It linked the two economies so tightly that the Douro Valley became the first officially demarcated and regulated wine region in the world.
When was that?
1756.
Wait, that's before Champagne, before Bordeaux.
Long before. And it was our friend the Marquês de Pombal again, the man who rebuilt Lisbon. He set strict boundaries for the region and production rules to ensure quality and protect the port brand from fraud. It was all about quality control for export.
So let's go upstream to the source, the Douro Valley itself.
It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it is a brutal, beautiful landscape. It's not rolling hills of soft earth. It's mountains of hard, flaky schist rock.
Not an easy place to grow things.
The local saying is 9 months of winter, 3 months of hell. The summers are baking hot, and the terraces you see, these incredible steep staircases of vines climbing the mountains, they aren't natural. They were hacked out of the rock by hand over centuries. It is a staggering monument to human labor.
And the soil, that schist, is crucial for the wine, right?
Yes. The rock fractures vertically, which allows the vine roots to go down sometimes 30 feet or more to find water in the dry summers. And the stone absorbs heat during the day and radiates it back at the vines during the cool nights, which helps ripen the grapes to that incredibly high sugar content you need to make port.
Before we leave the north, we have to touch on Guimarães.
The Cradle City. This is where Afonso Henrique, the first king of Portugal, was born. On a tower in the old city walls, it's written in stone. Aqui nasce Portugal. Here, Portugal was born. It's the emotional and historical anchor of the nation's independence, connecting all the way back to that 1143 date.
Okay, let's do a hard pivot south. We're going way past Lisbon, past the Tagus River. We are entering the Alentejo.
The landscape shifts dramatically. You leave the green granite mountains of the north and you enter the planície, the rolling plains. This is the breadbasket of Portugal. It's vast, it's golden, and it is quiet.
And it is hot.
Incredibly hot in the summer. And socially, this region is very distinct. Historically, this was the land of the latifundio, massive agricultural estates owned by absentee landlords in Lisbon and worked by huge populations of landless peasants.
And that had political consequences later on.
Big ones.
Mm-hmm.
In the 20th century, that social structure made the Alentejo a stronghold of the Communist Party after the 1974 revolution, in direct political contrast to the conservative, small landholder, devoutly Catholic North.
Looking much further back in time, this is where the Roman footprint feels the deepest.
Without a doubt, Evora is the star. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a true museum city. You have a remarkably well-preserved Roman temple, often called the Temple of Diana, right in the center of the city, Corinthian columns from the 1st century AD just sitting there.
But Evora is a palimpsest, isn't it? Layers of history.
A perfect description. You have the Roman temple, you have the twisting alleys and arches of the old Moorish quarter, you have a massive Gothic cathedral, and you have Renaissance palaces all enclosed within medieval walls.
And you have the Chapel of Bones. We have to discuss the philosophy of this place.
The Capella dos Ossos. It's inside the Church of San Francisco. It was built by Franciscan monks in the 16th century. And they took the bones from several overflowing city graveyards and used them to line the walls and pillars of the chapel.
We're talking skulls, tibias, femurs.
Thousands of them, arranged in patterns, and above the entrance there's an inscription. Nos osos que aquí estamos, pelos vosos esperamos.
We bones that are here await yours.
It's not meant to be a haunted house or a macabre tourist trap. It's a profound counter-reformation statement. It's memento mori, remember you will die. In an age of incredible wealth from the discoveries, the monks were delivering a powerful message. Don't get too arrogant. This is the final destination for everyone.
The Alentejo also has a crucial defensive role, doesn't it? The border castles.
Yes, because the terrain is so open and rolling, it's a perfect invasion route for armies coming from Spain. So the Portuguese built these massive fortifications. Elvas is the prime example. It has the largest bulwarked dry ditch fortification system in the world. It's a star fort on steroids.
And finally, we reach the mainland's southern edge, the Algarve.
Now, most people know the Algarve for the beaches, the resorts, the golf courses, and the coastline is stunning, those golden cliffs, the sea caves at Lagos, and the Ponta da Piedade. But the name of the region tells the real story. Algarve,
which is Arabic.
It means the West. This was the heart of the Moorish kingdom in Portugal, and it was the last stronghold of the Moors on Portuguese soil, not falling to the Christian reconquest until 1249.
And the Moorish legacy is still there.
It's everywhere once you look past the resorts. The characteristic flat-roofed white houses with their intricate latticework chimney pots, the almond and citrus and fig groves. The Moors revolutionized agriculture here, introducing irrigation systems and new crops that are essentially still used today.
And we end the mainland tour at the southwesternmost tip of Europe, Sagres.
The end of the world, or what was considered the end of the world, Cabo de San Vicente. Before 1492, this was literally the edge of the known universe for Europeans. It's a barren, windswept plateau of cliffs plunging into wild Atlantic.
And this is where the myth of Prince Henry's School of Navigation really lives.
Historians still debate whether there was a formal brick-and-mortar school building, but intellectually, this was the campus. This is where the Atlantic winds first hit the European continent. It was the perfect natural laboratory for studying winds, currents, and shipbuilding. Standing there, looking at that massive Rosa dos Ventos, the wind compass that's cut into the earth, you understand why they went. There was nowhere else to go but out into the ocean.
We have one final stop, but it's a big jump. We need to go about 1,000 kilometers out into the Atlantic, to Madeira.
Madeira is crucial to the whole story. It was one of the first Atlantic islands discovered and settled by the Portuguese around 1419, and it became the laboratory.
The laboratory for what?
For the entire colonial model. Before Brazil, before Angola or Mozambique, the Portuguese figured out how to create a profitable plantation colony in the tropics on Madeira. They realized the rich volcanic soil was perfect for a cash crop.
Sugar.
Sugarcane, the white gold of the 15th century. But sugar requires immense amounts of water and labor.
So they had to engineer the island itself.
They did. They created the levadas.
Yeah.
These are not just the beautiful hiking trails you see today. The north side of the island is very wet and rainy. The south side, where Funchal is dry and sunny. So they hand-carved thousands of kilometers of stone irrigation channels, levadas that contour through the basalt rock mountains to carry water from the springs in the north to the sugar plantations in the south.
An incredible engineering feat.
It's a feat that rivals the Roman aqueducts or the Inca terraces, done with simple tools in the 15th century. It completely reshaped the island's hydrology.
And sadly, as you said, it was also a laboratory for the labor model.
Yes, this is the darker side of the story. The plantation system that relied on enslaved African labor to do the brutal work of harvesting and processing sugarcane was piloted and perfected on Madeira and then exported on a massive scale to Brazil and the New World. It's a part of the history that sits right alongside the stunning beauty of the landscape.
And that landscape is dramatic. It's nothing like the rolling hills of the mainland.
It's sheer verticality. It's a volcanic shield rising from the ocean floor. You have peaks like Pico do Arriera that are often literally above the clouds. It feels Jurassic. The Laura Silva Forest there is a UNESCO-protected relic of a type of subtropical forest that once covered much of southern Europe millions of years ago.
So we've covered 800 years of history: earthquakes, navigation, wine, revolution. When you step back and look at the whole of Portugal, what is the single through line?
I think it comes back to the paradox we started with. A small nation that simply refused to be absorbed, they survived and then they thrived by turning their back on the European continent and embracing the ocean.
But that constant leaving, that outward focus, it came with a cost.
It did. And that emotional cost is codified in the famous Portuguese concept of saudade.
The so-called untranslatable word.
We often translate it as longing or nostalgia, but that's really too simple. Saudade is the presence of an absence. It is the bittersweet feeling of loving something that is gone. It's a culture built on people leaving, the sailors, the emigrants, and the experience of those left behind, waiting on the pier.
It feels like a country that is perpetually looking out at the horizon.
It is. I think it's a country that had a golden age in the 1500s that was so impossibly bright and world-changing that it has spent the last 500 years processing what that means. But what's so fascinating about modern Portugal is how they are reconciling that past with the present. They are innovative, they are leaders in green energy, Lisbon is a major tech hub, yet they live so comfortably alongside these powerful ghosts of history.
So it's a place where you can ride a high-speed train past a Roman aqueduct to eat a pastry that was invented by medieval monks because of their laundry.
That is the perfect summary of Portugal.
Thank you for unpacking all of this with me. It's been quite a journey.
My pleasure. It's an incredible place.
And to you, the listener, go for the history, stay for the wine, but always keep your eyes on that horizon. We'll catch you in the next deep dive.